Hello everyone, this video is on sensitivity and how we're all sensitive beings, sensitive multidimensional beings, and that we have a right to that sensitivity and there is a purpose to it. And there's a spectrum of sensitivity. When we take a body, it can be difficult to be in an environment where we don't get our needs met, because in the relative world, we have to learn how to cope with the duality that we see, the fact that just by virtue of taking a human body, there is a certain level of ignorance and there is a spiritual journey that we go on. And so when we want to lean on others or have stability on other human beings that are going on that journey, they're going to fail us. That's just part of life, is that we fail and other people's, they fail. So there can be a disillusionment with that failure. There can be some trauma associated with it because we have to learn not to split. And this is a psychological term where we see things as black and white, good and bad. And when we're little kids, our parents can do no wrong. And then we have to learn that they're human, they're on a spiritual journey, that Santa Claus doesn't exist, that they're imperfect, that they have hidden psychological worlds that maybe would freak us out that we don't want to fully know. And oh my God, what does that mean? It means that I have to be in this world without fully feeling that I'm protected from an individual, from a parent, and that can be terrifying. And because we've temporarily forgotten that divine protection and who we truly are, we had to take the body, it can be terrifying and it can lead to such sensitivity until we bridge that gap with the divine, or we're individuated and resilient and able not to split, not to just see things as black or white, people as good or bad, to understand that we're all here, we have ignorance, we're on a spiritual journey, we're imperfect, and that's okay. It's okay to be imperfect. It's okay for others to be imperfect, and the imperfection is perfect. The imperfection is built into the very design. And there is a purpose to the imperfection, because without perfection, how could you even go on a spiritual journey? I mean, we come here to learn lessons, we come here to grow in ever expanding levels of love and compassion. And the biggest thing to grow in ever expanding levels of love and compassion is to make peace with the imperfections of oneself and others in the relative world. And that's a journey that can be sometimes a struggle, because there's part of us that wishes things were perfect in the relative. There's part of us that wants to fix the imperfections in others or within ourselves, that can be very hard on ourselves and others and very disappointed. But part of stepping into the power of who we truly are, we're divine beings that are ever expanding, that are oceanic and ever more capable of growing in love and expansion. And as the universe expands, it expands in its capacity. And so where are we right now in our human evolution? Well, in other videos, I say nothing can hide. All of the imperfections that we didn't want to see in the organizations, in the people, in our family, within ourselves, are coming up to be shown to us, because our divinity is here, it's arrived, it's already done. And so there's a knowing that we can hold space for the de-stressing, that we can hold space for the imperfections. And it's giving us an opportunity. It's like, look at this person with bipolar disorder. Look at this person with narcissistic personality disorder that's dysregulated. Look at this person that's autistic. Look at this person that is struggling with OCD. Look at yourself. Look at the spectrum and how sensitive you are as a result of moving around in the kingdom with other people that are dysregulated and how that's affecting you. And can you cope? But not only can you cope, can you grow in ever expanding love, being around all of the contrast that you see in people? And I think we can. And I sense that this is a perfect time to challenge ourselves and to allow us to really hold space for the individuals in the world that are suffering. And in allowing us to hold space for the individuals in the world that are suffering, we simultaneously hold space for our own wounding and for our own divinity to expand. And there's just this co creation, this loving, ever expanding co creation that can happen. And so this love can expand just out of a growing awareness through meditation and stillness. It can also grow out of just living life and loving people who are struggling and figuring a way out of the misery that ensues when we try to demand that they change or that they're no good for some reason or we need to get rid of them. That's just going to cause a whole matrix of suffering and ignorance because a continuing theme in all the videos is we don't know where one person begins and another ends. And if we don't know where one person begins and another ends, and then we're looking at individuals that we perceive as separate to us and think that they're broken, think that they need to be fixed, think that we're good or they're bad, or we're bad and they're good, that is delusional and that is just old news. If we roll around in the kingdom and we meet somebody and they're de-stressing or they have OCD and they're being very perfectionistic and they're giving us a hard time and saying you're not good enough, you need to be better, or that they're repeatedly changing things in their environment because they're anxious and it needs to be perfect, we don't immediately just think there's something wrong with them. Oh dear, they need to go get therapy. It has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with you because your reaction to them has everything to do with you. And so, how do you react to somebody with OCD? Well, you can notice, how do I perceive them? Is there any disdain? Is there any irritation? Is there any confusion or judgment or hatred or disgust? And that can point to some of our own inner wounding that needs to be healed because those are blocks to your ever expanding love and compassion. And so, if there is some negative emotions towards this person with obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD, we might want to ask why, because we know that there's no difference really between them and us on a subtler level, that we don't know where They begin and we end. So there's a lesson to be learned in our judgment of them. And then we might want to meditate on it, or just by observing it, we might get some insights. But we might also consider what is the benefit of the OCD. Because nature, it kind of has a sense of humor. It gives us things, and there's duality in the things that it gives us. So if it's giving a person OCD, then it's giving a person an opportunity to transmute that into something useful. Another theme in the videos is nature never wastes anything, there's always usefulness. So, what's the use of OCD? Well, I mean, if you're a surgeon and you have OCD, then you can really make sure that you do the best surgery. And I would love a surgeon to have OCD if he's going to operate on me. Or if you're a pilot, or if you're going to channel your OCD into something which needs that level of care and attention and focus. And, we can channel it to a point if we start to get very anxious and dysregulated because it moves into an uncomfortable space. There are ways, there are therapies, there are modalities to help keep it in check. But OCD in of itself can be beneficial. It can be beneficial in learning to have compassion for us if we have it, or for other people if they have it, and also to channel it because it might be part of our design. So there's a purpose to it. And also, if we have been diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder. I mean, I don't like labels. Everything's a spectrum. And it's like a sensitivity spectrum. We're all born sensitive, but the sensitivity can get greater and greater and greater and greater. And sometimes it can go into a bit of a red zone, and then you might get an official diagnosis. But why does that happen? And I can go into many videos on why it possibly happens. It's all unfathomable, but these disorders, they occur because, on one level, they occur because the sensitivity expresses in a certain way. So, for instance, with NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, the sensitivity is because we're sensitive to how others perceive us in the world. And so it's channeled into appearances and power dynamics. But it comes from insecurity, it comes from sensitivity. So it's funny how we think that people with MPD are not sensitive. In fact, it's the reverse. They're so sensitive that it's become dysregulated and caused a personality disorder. And it can cause them to shut down and not be sensitive to other people. But that's a byproduct of being sensitive. And so if we start to understand these disorders, we can have compassion for them, and we can stop thinking that the people that express these disorders are less than a non-human or need to be wiped off the face of the planet. Quite the opposite. So there's a big movement around narcissism right now, and how, watch out, and there's a lot of fear mongering around it. But when, you come across narcissistic traits in people, and we all have them within ourselves, but when they are exacerbated and there might be a official diagnosis, how do we react to narcissistic people? Disgust, anger, irritation, fear. Maybe we've been traumatized by it. That points to our own inner wounding. So thank you for pointing me in the right direction. And it's an opportunity when we interact with people which have narcissistic traits in organizations or in our family units or just around shopping or driving. to learn how to be accepting and loving of these individuals, because they are sensitive individuals that have shut down and have a coping strategy that they may not even be conscious of. And so we allow them to be the way they are, knowing that we're not fully in charge of when or if they change, but we are in charge of how we perceive them, and we always hold space for the possibility of change. And that change can occur when we stop judging them. There's also a big discussion around you can't treat narcissists and they can't change. Well, that's because the therapists or the people who are encountering them get triggered around them. And that triggering needs to be looked at, because narcissism will always exist when people are triggered by it, and it will naturally heal when we learn to be less triggered and we stay in a compassionate place and we hold space for it and we cognize solutions to it. And so that's coming. And I do predict there'll be a shift in the way we perceive it, and there'll be a growing compassion and deeper understanding, and we won't be shaming people who suffer from being very sensitive. And so, yes, so that's narcissism. I've got another video on it which goes into it on a deeper level if you want to watch that. And then there's things like borderline personality disorder, where people are so sensitive, they get very attached to people and afraid of losing the relationship, and very dysregulated emotionally because they are so sensitive, and that's how their sensitivity expresses. And it's so beautiful. Humans are sensitive. We always think that animals are sensitive or plants are sensitive, and then we always point the finger saying, "Oh, the human race, it's not. It's bad and everything else is good." But what we fail to understand is the reason humans suffer is because they are so sensitive. And if we can figure out how to be with our sensitivity, then we could just grow and expand in love and compassion and higher states of consciousness so rapidly, because we are. And we're so sensitive that we shut down. We're so sensitive that we get overwhelmed. And I did another video on autism spectrum. These individuals are just higher beings. They are incredibly sensitive and valuable and so important, but they're misunderstood also. And so, can we move our understanding into a new place where we celebrate humanity, where we don't shame humanity and think it needs to be wiped off the planet because it's no good, where we celebrate humanity, celebrate its sensitivity, hold space for some of the hypersensitivity that leads to disorders, and hold space for a solution to arise from that. And a solution is going to arise because there are therapists in the field who are highly compassionate, who are higher beings, who are the new gurus on the planet, who are doing scientific research, who are studying these diseases, who are really dedicating their entire life to figuring out ways of treating these people, of humanizing these people, who also understand that it's not the fault of the patient or the client if they're having difficulty overcoming their challenges. It's more that it is the therapists maybe not fully understand how to hold space or react to the person. And so that's really, really beautiful. And I'm so excited about that. And so it just needs a little bit of fine tuning, just a tweaking of understanding. And so I'm praying that we can all hold space for individuals that are suffering right now, and in holding space for those individuals, we hold space for ourselves because we're all one at a deeper level. And I pray that the solutions to the treatment, personality disorders, and challenges can really expand, and that the population can have compassion, deeper understanding, respect, awareness, and we can hold hands and know that we are all one. Jai Gurudev.